Alright, let's talk blackberries. When I'm talking blackberries, I mean blackberries and Loganberries. I just kind of classify the two as the same. And I'd even throw in some thornless raspberries. If the canes are thornless, they kind of grow pretty similar. The difference is that Loganberries are not size determinate, so they can grow as long as they are supported, and they will grow up to, I think the longest vine we've had so far, the cane was 16 foot. So I know that they can get very, very long. Now we've crossed ours with blackberries to get a sweeter berry that's more palatable, but blackberries are typically pretty determinate in size. They don't typically get longer than 6 or 8 feet. So you can use the cattle panel method with blackberries, and the cattle panel will hold the weight of multiple plants. We typically put anywhere between 20 to 35 blackberries on one cattle panel. And we don't have to water them after the first year. So when we add a new row, like we added these 2 rows this year, so when we add a new row, they look like this. And you water them for the first 4 weeks when you put them in the ground. But then after that, you let them grow naturally in your environment. And it's your job to weave the plant through the cattle panel. Now, all the new growth you see on these guys, for the most part, is going to be first year cane growth, which means that next year it will grow fruiting branches. So if we don't cut it this year and we just weave it into the grate, then we're going to be perfectly set up for next year's fruiting branches. Now you can see that's what we've already done over here. So as the fruiting branches woke up, they're covered in fruits. Those fruits are now ready to pick, and it's already growing 1-year canes, which are these big, long guys. These won't make fruit this year, but they are going to test their environment and try to get as long as possible. And as long as they have support and they're being weaved into their structure, they will continue to grow. You want these to grow as much as you can, because just like tomatoes, these sun-soaking leaves, this leaf right here, whose purpose is to soak in sun, produces this limb right here at the crux, and that is a fruiting limb. So next year, that limb will produce fruit. So now that we've got this nice, tall, I don't know, probably 6.5 foot so far on that one, 6.5 feet, now it's starting to make these fruiting limbs for next year. So those will make fruit next year, which means the blackberries you see now, although it looks like we already have a lot, they're going to be, 6 to 10 foot tall producing next year. Now this is much, much taller, pretty close to 10 foot on this one. This is the one that I think is going to make the longest possible leg. We're trying not to cut the legs this year. We want to see what it can get to as its max height. So we're probably actually going to add a cattle panel over my head here and a curve to make an arc shape so we can grow it up and over, which will also give me more shade when I come to pick them. So that'll be nice. But for now, we just grow them to the top of the cattle panel and start to weave them into one another going sideways so that they can continue to grow the whole 30-foot length of the cattle panel. Cattle panels are super cheap. In my area, they're $25 to $40 a piece, depending on how heavy duty you want it to be. It doesn't necessarily need to be the thicker cattle panel. And then we just have like a standard small truck. So what we do is we cut the cattle panels with a pair of bolt cutters. We just cut it, and then when we get it home, we tie it together with wire. And then one T-post at the third point on each end. So just 2 T-posts total. And we are going to substitute these out and probably do 4 T-posts, but we're going to do the big tall 10-foot T-post so that we can add the second layer on. But this is my method for growing blackberries. It takes up a lot less square footage. So this is kind of the typical American method to growing blackberries here for size comparison. You've got 1, 2, 3 bushes planted all together in kind of a circle so that they can spread on their own. And that's cool. They will definitely produce fruit after about 2 years. and it will continue to grow pretty quickly after that. However, you don't get to control it, and the bushes stay, as you can see, pretty small. This is the same breed as the 12 footer over here. Same exact breed. So the lack of something holding it up is the reason why it has stayed compact. It's not genetically compact. If I were to give that some structure like my other ones, it will get just as big because it's actually a well-aged patch. But I just like to keep it this way so I can show you the difference between the standard American method for growing blackberries versus my method of growing blackberries, which is much more efficient. And the fact that I don't have to water them more than 4 weeks after new ones go into the ground, but I don't water them in the years after that. All I do is tuck them in and trim them and take care of them. I really think that this method of growing blackberries is by far more efficient, and it just takes up so much less space. It's also, if you keep these grates further apart, we're able to actually take our mower through here. Now I placed the first ones at the recommended American spacing, and it was too tight for our mower, so we have to always weed eat this one. So I don't suggest getting them in smaller spaces like that to pack in more. Instead, make sure you have good spacing so you can take your mower in between them, because it's super important that you are able to maintain the care and keep your walking spaces open, because you don't want poison ivy to invade your blackberry area. They like the same, similar conditions. So if you give poison ivy a foothold in your blackberries, you're going to have a lot of trouble getting rid of it. So just keep up on the weed eating, and that will reduce the majority of the less pleasing bugs and their attention to your blackberry patch, as well as the other plants that you don't want to naturally invade. This is our method for asparagus, and one of these following videos will have the whole method explained, but right now what we're monitoring are these balls, which typically hold 4 to 5 seeds a piece. We're waiting for them to turn bright red. This one's almost ready. It'll turn red, and then we'll have to harvest them, and I will spend literally hours plucking those all open, removing the seeds, and drying them. Super excited to show you guys how to do asparagus this year, so everybody can succeed.